Hello, welcome back to LIVENODING. In this episode, I want to share the breakdown on how I created this kind of like an artwork, circular art. This was actually made of like 100 strands of a single object that's being generated using geometry nodes. So let me get rid of the rendering and let me show you. Let me reduce the whole setup. This setup was actually using a node setup from Johnny Matthews. The other day he added one node, accumulate field node into geometry nodes. You can go through these 4 different tutorials, and then after you do that, you might be able to create something like this. It all started just using this guy over here. So this is the original objects. Let me actually reduce something. Oh yeah, I don't need this. So okay, so this guy over here is using geometry nodes and it's generating like a tower over here, and there's like a minimum and a maximum that's controlling the size of the cube. So underneath it's really just a subdivision, like a cube. If I get rid of this, okay, yeah, it's just like a box being stacked on top of each other. And then we are able to do this because we are using the accumulate nodes, and the setup is a little bit like this, and this is following Johnny's node setup. The most basic example is to use this mesh line, and then where's the accumulate nodes? This guy, accumulate field node. So we started actually with a random value with minimum and maximum, and the seed that's being controlled now outside. So from this minimum and maximum value, you can create a different stack of boxes. And I actually made a bit of changes, so it's looking a little bit more like a bullet time effects. I think, but anyway, random value goes in, and then you get this leading and trailing value that's you average. This node basically kind of generate a stack of value that keep accumulating over time as you increase the number of value that you pipe it in. Anyhow, Johnny already explained everything, so I just want to show you mine. So we are using cube, and we instance it, and then we stack the cube using the accumulated value into the position. So anyway, we have this stack. I should have stacked the, probably I should have stacked the length, the height, instead of stacking the X and Y. That's why it's looking slightly different here, slightly wrong. Yeah, anyway, I should have piped it into this. So we have like a bead. What's interesting, however, here I'm using, okay, we have a single object here, and I'm using SVerchok. Okay, SVerchok, something that's I'm more familiar with. So with SVerchok, we can actually do neat thing like this. So no longer it's a single value, no longer it's a single geometry. I'm duplicating the geometry 100 times using this plane, so I can totally have control over the plane. And then using SVerchok, I'm also randomizing each and every seed of the geometry. Okay, this is geometry nodes. Each one of them still have geometry nodes. Each one of them have different seed and different count, and also different the same minimum and maximum. Okay, just different seed and count. And I'm using SVerchok for that. So SVerchok have this object instancer. If you enable full copy, you can simply grab the original object into alpha and then simply scatter them into a grid, just like this. So I have 100 different objects. Seems okay. It's also updating the result on the fly, so it's totally different now. Another thing that I did was to use circle and matrix normal, so we have like a circular result like this, and I have full control of the circle. So for each one of them, I am randomizing the modifier value simply by right clicking and then copy the full data path and paste it into this object ID set mk2. Okay, this node is quite interesting in SVerchok, as it is it's working on the object level, and you can change any attribute value using this object ID set. All right, and you can randomize this value. You might notice it doesn't change right away. Let me quickly save this. But if you reopen the file, yeah, the value actually changes. As for rendering and the shader, I'm using a glass shader, so it's a lot of ray tracing happening for this. Simply just using object info and random plug into the hue. I have this variations of glass. This is quite interesting result. We can use denoise, and I'm using Blender 3.1 alpha. I can use the GPU, but it might slow down. It's a lot faster after it's doing this its calculations. We're gonna stop this. CPU is okay, and also you can use the EV. EV is even faster because you can just enable screen space reflections, and it's kind of looking all right. Oh, in this case, I think cycle's better for ray tracing. Okay, so that's pretty much the setup. Okay, you definitely need to watch the video 4 different parts so far, and it's how to create the cube being stacked. So what I did here was just to use SVerchok and to make it more complex on top of the geometry nodes. I think there might be a way with geometry nodes. So we currently have this group input, etc. But I think there's a way also just to group this, I just did a Control G, so it's become a single object. And then from this single objects, there could be a way for you to create instance just inside geometry nodes and then just randomize the seed that way. It could be, it could work. So you can do it this way. And I just instance it inside geometry nodes. It might be slightly more complicated, but I like to do it using SVerchok for now. Hopefully you find this useful. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.